Now, Chuck Woolery is a former game show host that now is a Republican, a conservative, and has a new podcast. Now, on Fox News, Chuck Woolery was on to promote his podcast, Blunt Force Truth, which is kind of how I would feel listening to the podcast, except without the truth part. More like blunt force trauma to the head. But nonetheless, he was on there talking about Matt Damon's commencement speech for MIT's class of 2016, and he did not have some kind words for Matt Damon. Let's take a look.
You know, it's a very interesting situation. Here's Matt Damon, one of my favorite actors. I love Born Legacy, all of those things.
Yeah.
It's great. Love him as an actor. It's flipped on its head. In the 50s in Hollywood, if you spoke against for communism, you were blackballed. In the 90s and 2000s in Hollywood, if you speak for communism, you're rewarded for it. But if you speak against communism, you're blackballed.
For sure.
So everything's flipped upside down.
Oh, everything's flipped upside down because apparently Matt Damon is a communist. This guy already, he's off to a great start. Immediately, communism, obviously, like a minimum wage, communism. Now, I know he didn't mention minimum wage in that clip, but he's about to. In fact, let's go to that.
Well, most people don't realize that it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. And they don't put it in perspective. See, I think it's the liberals' job to take the simple and make it as complex as possible. I think it's the conservatives' job, and we don't do a very good job of it, to take the complex and make it as simple as possible. So we try to take these issues like the things that sound really good, you know, this knee-jerk reaction, $15 an hour. My son is 19, 20 years old. He would love to make $15 an hour. I'd love for him to make $15 an hour. But it literally just hurts business. Business will react in a way like McDonald's does it right now. Wendy's is doing it right now. We'll have someone at the counter to take that person's job because it's cheaper to make it a robot.
Right.
And go that way than it is to pay people. Plus, they're 24 hours a day. They don't complain. There is no union, and we don't have to pay them. So business will find a way around that, and then people will be mad at that. But you got to earn your way in this world, and if it costs them $15 an hour, and you're a small business, and it ruins the business, what good does it do? And people just don't think that through. They don't reason it through, and they have a knee-jerk reaction like, oh, $15 an hour, great.
Yeah, it sounds great.
And minimum wage is like, these are people who are starting off. They're not people who have families, by and large.
Okay, so there's a lot of bullshit to unpack on this. And a lot of this bullshit is based on the fact that he has no idea how the economy actually works. But hey, his claim to fame is being a former game show host. So what do you know? But I remember back when he said simple ideas, right? It's the job of liberals to make things overly complicated, and it's the job of conservatives to make it more simple, you know, as simple as possible. Well, simple ideas for simple people, right? I mean, what's more simple? Like, I'm a rich CEO. I take all the profit. You got all the scraps. Well, that's pretty simple, right? I get all the tax breaks. You don't. I get all the benefits of your labor. You don't. That's simple. I like simple. Why do you liberals have to go and complicate things with your unions and your child labor laws and your fucking minimum wage and all your stupid, complicated rules? I hate your rules. Things were so much better when we could just work you to death in the swap shop and fire you for whatever reason. Oh, I don't like the tone of voice you used to me today. Yeah, fired. Gone. Take your scraps and go. Oh, wait, you don't have any. Things were so simple. Why'd you have to make it so complicated? Why? Now, here's the other thing, right? He says that you've got to earn your way in this world. Really. If it costs $15 an hour and you're a small business, it ruins the business. What good does it do? And plus, they're going to automate things like McDonald's and Wendy's. You know, McDonald's recently raised their minimum wage. And they've reported higher profits. Now, wait a minute. How does that work? Well, it turns out they had less turnaround, better service. And people started wanting to go to McDonald's more because people were fucking up their orders. Why? Because people actually were motivated to do a better job because they actually got paid something that they could, you know, live on. It makes you put pride in your work. hey, this company's taking care of me. I'm going to take care of the company. I'm going to do the best goddamn job I can do. Instead of, when you pay me a minimum wage, you're going to get minimum work. You're going to get $7.25 worth of work. That's all I'm going to give you. Instead of, hey, I can actually afford to live now. I don't have to live with my parents. I can afford an apartment. I can buy food. I don't have to live on government assistance. I'm actually happy. And I'm going to do a better job at work because now I can appreciate my workplace. Because my workplace appreciates me by paying me enough. But he doesn't get this, right? He doesn't get this. He doesn't get the actual good that it does when you have a living wage. Now, he also addresses robots. Well, they're going to automate things. Well, eventually they will. But there are jobs that can't be done by robots. There will be some automation. That's inevitable. I think it's practically inevitable that we will move to a situation where a lot of jobs are automated. And there are, of course, some jobs that won't be automated, run by robots. But those will be probably programming the robots. But that's like way off in the future. And there's two ways you can go from that. You can go from a utopian future, where the robots do the work, and everybody benefits from that, or a dystopian one, where only a few people benefit, and the rest of humanity lives in abject poverty. I wonder which one this guy would be in favor of. But as I said, we're talking hypotheticals on here, and the age of automation isn't quite here yet. It is coming, and we've got to deal with that. But right now, that's not an excuse to deny people a basic, fair living wage. It's just a bullshit argument. So, not only that, but fast food workers aren't the only ones that make the minimum wage. And that's a pretty common misconception. There's a lot of jobs out there that pay minimum wage. It's not just food service, right? For example, there's nursing home workers and AFC, which is adult foster care home workers. Those are the people that take care of your family when those family members are unable to take care of themselves. People with, mental disabilities, physical disabilities, handicaps, that live in a group home. A lot of the workers there, they're hired off the street and get paid minimum wage or just above minimum wage. Now, I got news for you. You can't replace those people with robots. And here's another thing, right? Minimum wage, it was designed to be a minimum, right? Which is a minimum standard of living without needing government benefits to survive. That minimum is $15. That's why we call it a living wage. That is the minimum you can live on without needing government benefits or help or subsidized apartments or whatever. But see, this guy is a multimillionaire. Now, I wonder why he doesn't get it. I wonder why he doesn't understand the economics of people who are poor, people who are working class, people who live on the minimum wage. Maybe it's because he's never lived at the poverty line. Maybe he's never worked that type of job. Or maybe it's because adjusted with inflation, the minimum wage is worth less in spending power than it did in the 1960s. Now, if this guy was working as a McDonald's worker back then, he had a living wage. Yeah, I can get everything that I need without being in the government. And then I can move up. I can get an education, which, by the way, back in the 1960s, education was a lot less. You could work a part-time minimum wage job and be able to afford to get yourself educated. Now, that's literally impossible without going into, a mountain of debt. And that goes back to him saying, you've got to earn your way. How? By continuously trying to work in poverty or amassing debt in the thousands of dollars for college? Can you do that out on your own? It's not as easy as it sounds. But really, I think a lot of these people in this message unintentionally just says, look, you've got to earn it by being born rich. Because you know what? A lot of these people that are spreading this message are usually ones that are born rich. Or they got lucky. Or it was back in a time when things were a little bit more fair. Now he finally says, these people are the people who are starting off. They're not people who have families, by and large. And once again, that's wrong. According to the Center for Economic and Policy Research, found that in 2014, the average age for a minimum wage worker had risen to 35 years old, and that 88% of employees who earn the minimum wage were older than 20 years of age. Now, of course, conservatives, a lot of them will look at that and be like, hey man, if you're working a minimum wage job and you're 35, you're a loser. I mean, seriously, who does that? You're a goddamn loser. You should just give up now and kill yourself. I know that's an extreme example, but I've seen it before. A lot of, calling them losers, waste of space. Go get a better job. Go get an education. And for all the reasons that I've already outlined, that's not easy to do. And for many, it's impossible to do. And that's the problem. That's why we're saying, hey, maybe we should get a higher minimum wage. Hey, maybe we should make college a little bit more affordable so that people can get the education they need to be able to move up. And what do conservatives say? Oh, you got to earn your way up. And just stop being lazy and stop asking for more. But hey, no, these people, we're going to ignore facts. And we're going to say these people are young people without families, basically teenagers working for beer money. Hey, my 19, 20-year-old, they love $15 an hour. Yeah, well, maybe it's because your 19, 20-year-old can't afford to live on his own without it. You ever thought that's the problem? Look, this guy is just another clueless, rich conservative that doesn't understand that when you pay people a living wage, they stop taking government benefits. Which, by the way, come from your taxes. You're always bitching about that, right? Goddamn people on welfare, taking my tax money and being lazy. Well, no, they're not being lazy when they're working. Working, having a job, is the definition of not being lazy. But they have to take those benefits because they can't afford to live without them. That's the problem. And here's the thing, right? These people will also spend that money at other businesses, perhaps even smaller businesses that can't import cheap Chinese junk, but instead decide to sell American goods made by American workers, which end up creating American jobs. I mean, when people have more money, they make better choices. They decide, many of them will decide, look, I don't have to shop at Walmart for cheap shit. I can actually get something that's USA made. That's going to help American jobs. They don't realize any of this stuff. No. Instead, they believe in this neoliberal, trickle-down supply-sider bullshit that's been destroying the middle class for decades.